Welcome to the Traveling Perspectives podcast. In this episode, I talk with Cam. When I initially posted on Instagram that I was turning this project into a podcast, Cam was one of the first people to volunteer to be a guest. I felt that Cam and I each showed up as our genuine selves in our conversation, and I'm very appreciative of his authenticity and support of this project. So here is Cam's perspective.
Harry, what's up?
Hey Cam, how are you?
I am good.
Thanks for taking the time to talk with me.
For sure.
Yeah.
You're on an exciting journey.
Yeah, thank you. So actually, I just talked to Jeremy yesterday. So we got to meet for the first time. We had messaged a little bit before, but that was our first time meeting. So thanks for the introduction.
Yeah. Well, I think he introduced you and I, at least the idea of us. So
Okay.
it's really just Jeremy being a catalyst like he is usually.
Yeah, just doing his thing. Well, awesome. So yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself. This is our first time meeting as well. So
Yeah. So I live in San Diego. And I would say I've lived and tried to live a very non-traditional life. The way I put it now, and I'm working on a business around this idea, is I live an unboxable life. So it's like society has a tendency to be like, here's the checklist with the boxes you need to fill out.
yeah.
And make you happy, which very rarely is the case. Some of those boxes contribute for sure. So I started checking those boxes, graduated high school, went to college. And like 2 years into college, I was like, okay. But I graded it out part-time for 6 years.
Wow.
We're finally being like, yeah, college isn't my thing.
And where did you go to school?
It was a community college here locally.
Okay.
So I think I'm one class away from an associate's degree after 6 years.
Wow.
It was finally, I was like, I'm clear. Like this isn't going to get me where I want to go. So non-traditionally, some specifics there. It's like I graduated high school, was a software beta tester for a little bit. And then I got into refereeing volleyball. Then I got into coaching volleyball, and I played whenever I could. I worked with the Olympic teams for a small stretch.
Oh, wow.
Got into events, and events has been what I've done to just get by for the past few years.
Okay. And have you always played volleyball, or did you just find that after graduating, or I guess close?
Yeah. My stepdad, as I grew up, he was a high school coach. And then when we moved to San Diego, he got on as one of the assistant coaches at the University of San Diego and is now at the University of California, San Diego.
Okay. So it's been in your family for a while, basically. Yeah. That's cool. And how's your experience coaching been?
Coaching was fun. I haven't done I actually left volleyball completely in terms of like work, and I very rarely play, about 2 years ago now. Okay. I wanted some new challenges. I wanted to explore more of what life has to offer.
So what is this business that you're building now around that idea?
Yeah, the idea of the business it started out as like a coaching business. Mindset coaching, consulting. There's a lot of those out there. So it's not unique in that regard. My approach to it, I don't really like the idea of coaching. I don't think people learn very well from hearing from somebody else. Like that was my reason for leaving college. Yeah. It wasn't that I wasn't learning. I was learning too slow. So the idea I have is creating experiences that like either help people learn lessons that they could learn or should learn, but don't know they need to learn. And the event will force them to have to think, oh man, what do I have to do? Because most people, I think all, but most for sure, learn from doing things better than being told or reading.
I 100% agree myself. So how are you taking on clients now, or what's the process been to build this business?
Yeah. I should be taking on clients. There's resistance there, and some like I've never offered my own product, and so like I think there's internal judgment.
Sure.
As is most, like most people have that. I have typically, like I've been an independent contractor pretty much my whole working career, with a few exceptions. So it's not like I've directly worked for somebody else entirely, but one of the ways I approached that was always, just pay me what you think it's worth, which is not a good way to do business. So there's some aversion there, and really that's been what's holding me up, is just taking that leap.
Yeah. Do you have do you know somebody doing something similar, or do you have any mentors yourself in the same industry, or?
Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah.
Maybe too many. That might actually be part of the problem. I've realized it's good to find mentors, but if you get too many, then it starts to distract from you taking action.
That's an interesting concept, right? So what are you up to these days with in quarantine, or what are you working on right now?
So I've been working on that business, but quarantine has been interesting. So like I said, I work events. So I think you're in Florida.
I am, yeah.
California, we were one of the early, I think Ohio was the earliest. California was one of the early ones to do stay at home. And so I had been in Indianapolis for one of the last basketball tournaments before March Madness got canceled.
Okay.
So like I ended up getting into basketball events. I've worked March Madness a few times.
Must be crazy.
It is a very unique experience. And when you see anything like that from behind the scenes, it makes you appreciate how it's kind of like that metaphor of a duck is calm or a swan is calm on the surface, and then its legs are like, ah!
Right.
It's very much like that. Every big event, I'm sure. But Indianapolis, while I was there, it was the Horizon League. So while I was there, they got their first reported case.
Okay.
So then everybody's a little bit more on edge.
Right.
And then this was their league championship. So they had their women's and men's. And during one of the women's games, they invited like 3,000 elementary and middle school kids to come out. And so between the games, and then I got home on Wednesday, and then California, we did our stay at home on Friday. I was already self-quarantining, but it's just been a crazy experience since then. But I've rediscovered, and I'm owning that I actually love playing video games again.
Really? Right on. Okay. What games have you been playing lately?
Most recently was Pokemon Shield.
Okay.
It was my sister's birthday yesterday. It's my brother's tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
We are celebrating them all tomorrow. And so stepbrother and I had the idea of giving her Pokemon Shields. But before she got it, I needed to play the game and beat it. So I did.
Nice. Do you have old consoles from childhood still, or what are you playing on?
I was on the Nintendo Switch.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish I had the old consoles still.
Yeah.
I don't.
One of my biggest regrets is giving away all my Pokemon cards when I was 6 years old. That are worth, one card's probably like $40, $50.
Oh yeah.
Now, which is insane. And I was like, yeah, I'm never going to use them again. I'm over it. Like, just give them away.
Well, at least yours was earlier.
Yeah.
My brother and I think we sold all of ours at a garage sale for like maybe $5 or $10.
Oh man.
Max, like the whole set.
Yeah. Huge.
We were like in our teens. So it's like if we'd waited 10 years more, maybe less. Like.
Yeah. But was it you were just in that mindset of like, I'm over it. I'm not playing anymore, or?
I didn't understand value at that point. We never played it. It was more we collected them, but it was just it's a bummer looking back on it. There's a lot of those decisions. So like,
right.
man. Now it's like, all right, how can I learn from that?
Yeah. If I just hung on a little bit longer. Well, cool. So you're not working events at the moment, I'm assuming? All those events are canceled or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately for those in the business, but fortunately for
people and
the spread and potentiality of that. Yeah.
Exactly. So is there any idea of when those events might be starting up again or any talks or?
No, my guess is things will probably not be the same there for a year or two. And even then it won't be like the same. It'll be evolved in some capacity.
Yeah.
That said, it really won't change a ton. Like it's a pretty well dialed in industry. And the interesting part is there were a lot of aspects to it that I already wasn't a big fan of. There's a very big reliance on day labor, and like these day laborers come in and some of them are awesome. I mean, actually all of them have awesome stories, but like they don't necessarily see their own value. And so they just show up and they make minimum wage or whatever it is. And they're not happy. Like the majority of them are very unhappy. Some of them love it though. But like they don't put in the hard work, Like they just, not all. Some of them will just show up. Some of them won't work at all. Like they just hang out.
Yeah.
So like there's definitely some need in that industry for things to change. I don't know that this will bring that. But I think the next couple of years, events will be back. It's just part of being human. Like we love to have large gatherings and celebrations.
Yeah, I think people kind of need something like that right now. So I just saw just now like something about the NHL coming back potentially. So I don't know what the trend will be, or like no fans at all, or I'm not sure, but I think people just want something to watch to keep their minds off of. They just need a distraction, I guess.
Yeah, and it's actually an interesting thought that you just shared there, because it's like that's most people's, not most. There's a lot of people's mentality even before this situation. It's like, oh, I want to be able to watch the game so that I can get a distraction from my regular life.
Yeah. That's an interesting concept of just, I guess it's just escapism, right? Like everyone's looking for something, like whatever their vice may be. So yeah, is there maybe like something that you haven't had the time to do before, but now that you're not working the events, or is there anything that maybe you would want to take this time to try? Or
well, this really gave me the time to be like, okay, I don't have any excuses to start my business. For one, it has given me time to really work on like a morning routine.
Okay.
Because I have tended to be somebody who just kind of flies by the seat of my pants and sees what happens, which is awesome. You get to experience a lot more.
I do the same sometimes as well. So,
but having a little bit of a routine, like especially if you start getting into a little of a funk, it's like you can like minimize the negative impact that might have. So that's probably the biggest thing I've been working on, and it's mixed results. There've been some successes, and then it's been like a wave of learning.
Sure. And what's been like the main thing that you're trying to do in your morning routine?
Meditate, and for me, that's I use an app called Oak Meditation.
Okay.
It's not much different than most of the other apps out there. Timer, some like music or sound effects, and that's been a big one. Really just like a chance to just stop and think or not think, which I don't think that's actually the reason for meditation. Some people claim it is.
To stop thinking at all.
Yeah, I think it's a time to be able to like get the thoughts and not attach to them. Like allow the thoughts to be there, but not attached to them.
Yeah. How did you get into meditation?
I don't know how the original, maybe Tim Ferriss might have been.
Okay.
There've been a lot of people that have advised it, thrown it around. So it may have just been a mix of all of them saying, hey, this is worth the rain.
Yeah.
Still not fully sold on most of the things people claim, but like if people are getting those benefits, like Seth Godin yesterday was in a podcast. He's like, the placebo effect is real. And he's like, because someone asked him, what's it like going to the grocery store with him? And he's like, I understand the marketing behind things. He's like, so I'll tell people. He's like, oh yeah, this was marketed in this way. But like, if you think it works for you, like, by all means, keep doing it.
Right.
Like, if you think it works, then it works.
Yeah.
That's a mentality I've tried to have. So that one's been big. And then a journaling practice. I try to do like a 10-minute just free write, whatever thoughts come up. And that sometimes is really tough. So like it may be like writing out and going, oh, I hear the neighbors with their lawnmower going, or, oh, the kids are playing outside again. Oh, I hear a jet. And like, it's just whatever's coming up. And then like that can allow me to go deeper.
Yeah. Have you heard of the creators or their YouTubers, Colin and Samir, before?
Colin and Samir, the creators?
Yeah, they're like YouTubers.
I haven't heard of that.
No,
those ones. No.
Yeah, but they have a similar like mantra for journaling. They it's called fill the page, basically. So just one page and just write like whatever's going on, draw. But the point is just to fill the page with whatever kind of journaling or whatever you're thinking of before starting your day. So I've done that a few times. So, but what do you like, or like what do you get from journaling, from that 10-minute journal? What's it do for you?
It helps put things in perspective. So, like I just had a call a couple hours ago with a buddy, and he's like, I feel like I've got all these irons in the fire, and on some days everything's starting to feel overwhelming. And he goes, one of the things I do is I take out a journal and I just write about everything to help me remember that this was all created. So like if I'm really upset with it, I can just stop. You don't have to keep doing it. And that, I like that perspective. I was like, I think that's what I try to do. And I hadn't put it into words like that.
Yeah.
It was a really solid metaphor.
No, I agree. Like just as some sort of outlet to get things off your mind so you can put them out in the world, release them. And, if there's something that you're struggling with, and then and it's like reading it and seeing the words on paper and reading it back to yourself, I find is a good way to like get some sort of perspective on the situation. So that's really cool.
Yeah. How have you had that practice work for you? Like what were some of the things you saw
for journaling? Yeah, I find it a way to like kind of document time, and document just another outlet to put to paper like what I'm thinking in this moment. And then I like to go back to it maybe like a few months later, or even a year later, and just kind of see what I was thinking in the moment. And it's a good like reminder of just like the growth for myself. And so that's kind of like I know some people don't like to go back and read the things that they have journaled, but for me, like I can look back and see the person that I was then and how much I've grown since, and that's kind of what I like about journaling.
Yeah. Are there any specifics like of things that you remember writing about that you still reflect on now?
Yeah, for sure. So to get pretty real. So my dad passed away when I was 14.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thanks. It was about 11 years, like a couple days ago. So that's kind of shaped my world perspective, doing things that I want to do in this life, like that I know that, this is it. Like, there's no point in waiting because this is my one shot at. So I quit my corporate job and went to go like teach English abroad because it's something that I always wanted to do. And so I went and did it. So this journal basically that I started writing was like I said, like documenting like what's going on in my life now for the people, one day if I'm lucky enough to have kids, like they would know who their dad was, because that's something that I experienced myself, like asking those questions and like just growing up hearing stories when I myself can like write down what I'm living through in the moment. And then if there is somebody asking questions about me in the future, like then I've, created this whole kind of journal myself, and maybe it can help them. So I think that struggle of like looking back and recognizing, my mortality, and just the constant reminders to keep like following your gut and do the things that you want to do, like now in this life while you have the chance. That's something that I like to look back on, and it keeps driving me.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I have a very similar approach, though I don't have the as far as I'm aware, I don't have that type of story that really helped catalyze that.
Well, what's your story then?
I think I've always like toyed a bit with the line, like towed the line of being, I would say, myself. Like I would say I don't even know if towed the line is. I moved quite a bit growing up. So like I lived in Utah and Colorado, up near San Francisco, and then I'm now in San Diego. And because of that, I didn't really have that opportunity to build really deep friendships with people. Or when I would, it was like we would move shortly after.
Yeah.
Or they would move. That actually happened a couple times too. And so like I went from being this very outspoken, like I remember 4th grade and 5th grade, the teacher would make a slight mistake and I'd be like, hey, I think this is what you meant. And they're like, thank you. It's funny because like I learned how to approach those situations of correcting people. It's not like, hey, you're wrong. It's like, hey, I think you meant to do that instead. But like I've noticed, like after high school specifically, that became harder. Like I didn't do that quite as frequently until I got to a point where I was more comfortable. And then I also started to recognize I was like an example, I worked in a grocery store for a little bit as a bagger, which is so much fun.
Yeah.
You literally interact with every person that comes in the door if you want to.
Right.
And like it blows my mind how many baggers just kind of do their job. Like you literally are or could be the most important person in the store, leaving somebody with a good impression.
Yeah, you're creating that like environment, for them as they leave, right?
And like, I mean, I joked around with the people in line. One of the big ones, because when I started was shortly after, and I don't know in Florida if you guys have anything like this, but California, they got rid of plastic bags.
Okay.
And so
no, we still have our plastic bags, yeah.
Or they started charging for bags. So the idea was to encourage people to bring their own bags in. And that wasn't always the case. I mean, it's convenient not to have to think about, oh, dang, I forgot the bags in the car. Well, I'll just get bags here. And so me being aware of why the law was like what was intended with it was the idea of not using more than you needed to. And so when people would come in, they'd get in line and I was like, oh, like, would you guys like bags? And if they answered yes, I was like, is it all right if I just fit it all into one bag? And like it became this game of sorts to fit. Like, and some of these people had tons of groceries. To fit it all in one bag. And then at the end of it, I'd be like, all right, you want to hold this from the bottom because this will definitely tear the handles on this paper bag. But it was so much fun. And then the jokes of people was like, oh, you're only getting cheese today? Or like whatever it was. It was a blast.
So
but
you said
you don't get paid for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the most important job is the least paid in the whole store.
I don't know why it is like that, but
well, it's because most people in that position just show up and they do what they have to, not what
the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So why is it that you felt like you wanted to create that, step up experience for others?
I mean, it was more fun for me too. I mean, nobody really likes to go to work, depending on what they do. Some people, I guess, have pretty cool jobs. But even them, they have days where it's like, oh, I don't want to do this. And so, like, I've found, and one of my big approaches to life is, like, if I make things fun, I'm more likely to keep going with it.
Yeah.
So, like, that was an example in work. But, like, I do all sorts of, to me, fun is doing something new and exciting or learning something new. Like, it's exploring curiosity.
Oh, that's cool. So you said that you like, when you in elementary school, you have that confidence to talk to, not correct, but just help out the teacher. And you said that you kind of felt that you lost that a little bit. So you said you did regain that kind of confidence, or how did you find your way back to that?
I think refereeing was part of it. I don't know if you've ever reffed a sport or played sports. I'm sure you've watched sports.
Yeah, I played growing up as well.
Yeah. Reffing's not easy. And it's hilarious that I became a referee because I used to be one of those very passionate people that would heckle the refs.
Oh, yeah.
And I never told them while I worked with them. I actually probably should. But I remember one instance in particular where my dad's college team, they were playing. I don't remember who they were playing, but I didn't think the refs were doing a good job. And so my brother and I, we moved and went and sat behind the referee and pulled out like a $20 bill from our pocket. And like, how many calls is this going to buy us? And of course, now I'm friends with them. So
full circle.
I was like, I understand. I was like, well, I might have been a little overly passionate. But the cool part with that, it gave me perspective when I was reffing. Yeah. That, like, I knew not everybody saw things the way I did. I had to be as impartial as I could. But like any community, the referee community has people that are like, I'm right, you're wrong. And I found out that was never the best approach to take. And so I used that mindset from elementary school to help people learn from some of the mistakes they might make. So like if we have two referees on a match and somebody makes a pretty bad mistake, but I can't do anything about it. As soon as I was able, I would ask them a question to hopefully get them to think about it and also gauge how open they would be to hearing feedback. Because not everybody is. Some people don't. And I was like, okay, well, you're just going to keep repeating that and getting yelled at, and nobody likes to get yelled at, but you'll like, it's that definition of insanity, keeping the same or doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. Right.
So how do you deal with people who aren't open to taking some sort of advice or critique?
Because I love to learn and grow. If someone really shows that they don't want to, I try to limit my interactions with them. It's just, it isn't worth the frustration and aggravation on my part. And I know because I am so open to change and learning and growing, that it also probably creates some frustration and aggravation for them. So it doesn't happen often, but yeah, usually I would try and
steer clear. Yeah, I get that. I'm trying to cut out any kind of like negative people in my life, like anybody who doesn't like bring some like positive energy to my life, I'm over it. It's about that time, I'd say. So what is like your dream scenario going forward? Like what do you want your life to, your dream like job or setup, or how you make money? Or
ideally I will get to a point where like I have enough income coming in that that money isn't necessarily one of the thoughts I have all the time. I mean, it will be what it is supposed to be. Exchange of value. Some
sort of stability. Just that's what, just gives like freedom of choice.
But ideally, I want to speak to like high school students, middle school students. I've had some pretty unique experiences. I mean, working March Madness, working with the Olympic volleyball team. I had the fortune last year of working with the musician Mike Posner for
a couple
months.
Wow.
So he walked across America, and prior to that, I helped him get ready with all the logistics for that.
That's really cool.
And so, like, there's a lot of things that high school kids probably would enjoy doing, but they don't even know that they're an option.
Right.
Because everyone's like, oh, go to college and do this. And so I would love to be able to speak to them and be like, hey, these are some of the things I've done. And they're like, wait, what? What do you mean you've done that? And like just spark some curiosity in them to think differently. And then, I mean, even non-fitness or non-work wise, like I've had some fun experiences of running and doing some extreme events.
Yeah.
That's the cool part is it's not just for kids. Like it's that message can resonate with anybody. I just see it being more valuable initially for kids.
I like that a lot. So like going in, coordinating with schools to speak, or
I think so.
Yeah,
in some capacity.
Cool. What's like what would be your big message or that you want to convey?
Probably stay curious or something along those lines of like, don't just get bought into an idea, but be open to things being different than you think. Like even the smartest person in the room doesn't have all the answers.
Yeah. That was something that Jeremy was mentioning yesterday, that working to like put away the stigma of celebrity and like putting people on pedestals, that everyone's working with the best that they have in front of them.
Yeah, and sometimes it's all about being in the right place at the right time. Like a similar thought Seth shared, and I think it was this podcast yesterday, was like these marketers for Google and big tech companies, everyone looks at them as these like marketing geniuses.
Right.
In reality, they're probably not. Like they just happen to be in the right place at the right time, and things worked that they experimented with, and now they're like, sweet, this works, but they can't definitively say that that is the answer. It's just an answer that happened to work, and it doesn't work going forward. Yeah.
That's interesting. So are you a big consumer of podcasts then?
I go through spurts. I haven't listened quite as much recently. I mean, I guess it may be more than most still. But I've got two that I pretty consistently try to listen to. So it'd be Kimbo with Seth Godin, and then Big Questions with Cal Fussman.
Okay. I haven't heard about that one before.
Cal's awesome. So he used to be a writer for the men's magazine Esquire.
Okay.
And he's interviewed like Muhammad Ali, Mikhail Gorbachev, like some pretty big figures from history in the past like 40 years. And the cool part with his podcast is he takes people on his own journey. So like it started out and he's like, yeah, I'm not this tech guy. I didn't want to do a podcast because I didn't know how to work this Zoom recorder. And like, it's just, he's super relatable.
And so
he asks really good questions.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what kind of topics does he cover in his podcast? Or
curiosity is one of them. I'd say they vary, but like he's always like, he doesn't bring on guests that he's not curious about himself. And that like internal curiosity he has is contagious, I think. Yeah,
that's very cool. So to be honest, my like ears perked up when you mentioned Mike Posner, because I watched that video and was inspired myself. His original like song and music video that came out, and so what did you do to work with him on his walk?
I didn't make it on the walk, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
No, but beforehand I took care of the logistics. So it's like early February, late January 2019. I started on with the team, and like the first day we went for this gnarly REI run.
Okay.
He got, I didn't even like, I felt like he bought the whole store, but they had plenty of things afterwards still there. And then from then on, I mean, I was a personal assistant of sorts. So like day to day, I helped get him to appointments and this, that, take care of things. But he ended up buying this RV. And so I helped get the RV all ready to go, took all these stuff that we got, put it in the RV, tried to get it organized as well as possible, not knowing what all of his preferences would be.
Yeah.
And then pretty much was just like hung out. And I've done some endurance events myself, not walking a whole country, but like, I've run 100 miles, and I've done some longer than 24-hour events and whatnot. Wow. So was able to give him some perspective on that, things he might encounter, which was super cool.
Nice. So what kind of takeaways do you have from working on that project?
One of the big ones, and I'm still working to incorporate it, is really know what you're good at and what you want to do, and then outsource all the rest of it. Another one was like knowing my value. So personal assistants I heard from numerous friends, and I mean, it's my own fault, but I probably should have been paid more for what I was doing. So it wasn't just like similar to the grocery store experience. It's not like I was just showing up as the bagger. Yeah. Like I don't do that. It's just not fun for me. So now I learned that as well. Like that helped put some perspective in terms of my value. And then like really having fun. Like Mike and his friends, like routinely having tons of fun. Like that's one of his big things in life. He spends a lot of time with his friends, on phone calls, in person. When I worked with him, he flew over to Duke. He graduated from Duke, flew over there for a basketball game. It's very similar to the mindset you had, that you shared, that you took from your dad passing. And Mike, actually, that may have been very similar, because Mike, his dad had passed a couple of years ago too.
Right. I saw that in the video as well. Well, those are some good takeaways. Have more fun in your life, for sure. So so you mentioned the 100, miles that you've run, or, okay, well, what other kind of challenges have you taken on yourself, like similar to that?
2017. I got my start in it's not like, I guess, true start, but I decided to do more running challenges. So I started off with a 34-mile Spartan race.
Okay.
So it was an obstacle course race with, like, you had obstacles plus 34 miles. This was up in the mountains of California. We had a lake swim where it's like a 40-degree lake. And so I, of course, took the motivation from that. And then the next month I flew over to Greece for my first like true international trip. I ran 3 races in 2 days.
Wow.
Didn't know anybody, didn't speak Greek, went on a budget. Like it was as small as I possibly could.
Yeah. Where in Greece?
Sparta.
Oh, wow.
So it's not even a big tourist spot.
Yeah. No, I've been to Athens, Santorini, and then Mykonos. But never Sparta.
Very few people go to Sparta.
Yeah.
For me, I don't like to travel as a tourist. I love to travel as more of a local.
Mm-hmm.
So Sparta was awesome because it's very local feel. They don't get a lot of tourists that visit there, which surprises me, like with 300 and everything.
Yeah.
But they don't. It was super cool. You had Spartan France. So Spartan is franchised. So Spartan France was running the race.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been Athens.
Right.
So you know that Greeks can be a little lazy, at least in terms like from Western or not Western. I mean, they're Western. From like a U.S. mindset,
sure.
They're very stark difference.
Relaxed. Yeah.
And so like things will close in the middle of the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And the Spartan race, I guess their truck was like a week late. So instead of having 2 weeks to set up, they had 1 week, which the race went really well. And had I not heard that,
you wouldn't have
thought it.
Yeah.
As soon as I heard that, I started thinking back to the race, and I was like, yeah, I guess I could see how some of these things probably would have been done a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended up meeting, on my flight into Athens, I had randomly, a week before, stuck the Spartan race sticker on my water bottle, like a hydro flask.
Okay.
And the people across the aisle from me, they're like, oh, are you going to race this weekend? And I was like, yeah, are you guys? And they're like, yeah. I was like, sweet, where are you guys from? They're like, oh, we're from Singapore. I was like, that's crazy. So we get chatting and end up awesome experience with them. Spent a good chunk of the weekend there with them. Ended up, they threw out the idea because I didn't plan anything. Like I was going to go race and I had no plans otherwise. And they're like, oh, we're going to go visit these ruins. You want to come? I was like, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, right.
And while we're there, this Austrian fitness trainer and then one of his clients, like one of them was wearing a Spartan shirt and like super shape. I guess he's been on Austrian Ninja Warrior.
Okay.
He's an enduro motorcycle rider, so it's off-road motorcycle racing and whatnot. And he's like semi-pro or pro. So he's like, this guy's legit.
Right.
And you see him over like on a rock doing something crazy. And I was like, man. So we end up meeting them and like all the races are over and I end up at this bar. And like, this was one of the highlights of the whole experience is I end up at this bar to eat some food. And then I'm just gonna go home and sleep or go back to my Airbnb and sleep. And I hear all the, like there's the local Spartans as I call them, because Spartan athletes, they refer to themselves as Spartans.
Okay.
So I'm sitting alone and this group of local Spartans are off to my left.
Mm-hmm. And
they're all talking in Greek. And in my very quick trying to learn Greek, I learned like 4 words. And so I would catch the like 1 of 4 words or so. Mm-hmm. And then I heard volleyball or something like that. And I was like, huh? I was like, do you play volleyball? And so like they invited me in and like I was hanging out with them. And then my Austrian friends messaged me and they're like, hey, do you want to go grab wine? And I don't drink. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I'm cool hanging out. Like I was like, hey, I'm over here if you guys want to come over. So they ended up coming over. Well, this local Spartan group was their local enduro club. So bring in this professional Austrian enduro rider, and they're all talking enduro back and forth. I have no idea what they're saying. They're speaking English.
Okay.
And occasionally they get, they're like trying to think of a word, like, oh man, and I'd be, oh, here's the word. And they keep going in the conversation. You got one accent in Austrian, one accent in Greek. They're all speaking
the
English.
Man. Yeah.
And then we end up going to this, like the wrap up of the race party. And I'm not a big partier at all. Like it's just, the whole thing was out of my comfort zone and it was so much fun.
I mean, yeah, that's really cool that you like, an environment where you typically, I'm not a huge partier myself, but anytime I'm around a big group of people, it's always, or at least like friends or like people that you can have a good time with. Yeah, definitely. Those are good memories.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I only have one segment that I am doing on this podcast. So kind of to go back to the origins of this project is where I ask everybody that I talk to one question and then edit all the different answers together to show how different or similar people's answers can be. So for this month, I have a few questions. So the first one is, what is your hidden talent?
Well, the answer that came to mind at first is simplifying.
Okay.
I'm really good at taking like big ideas and making them happen, which is pretty much simplification.
Cool. And how have you been implementing that in your life, in your daily life?
It's an interesting talent because it works great. I do it great for everybody else, but not for me. But like a perfect example is I just started this coaching group with one of mentors I've had, and one of the other members of the group posted a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that he was doing this Kickstarter. And so I was like, sweet, like, what's the link? And so he posted it, and I looked at it and I was like, I love it. He took action. Like most people don't even get to that stage.
Right.
And I was like, okay, but like he could do this a little bit better and get some more results. The video he put was it was pretty much like a stream of consciousness. This is everything that's going on. This is why I did this with the project and this, and it was too long. And I was like, just tell your story. Like, have some fun with it. And so I heard his story, and then at the end of it, I shared it back to him, and it took maybe a minute, whereas his video, I think, was somewhere between 5 and 10. Yeah,
try and keep people's attention and grab them right off the bat. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I like that. That's cool. Okay. What is a recent accomplishment that you're proud of?
Recent accomplishment. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's a good question. Most people, in my experience, and when I say most people, I 100% mean me, don't often give themselves credit. So
yeah, it could be super small or as big as you want it to be.
I'll do a small one and a big one.
Okay.
But the small one, I'll do the small one first because I think people tend to see, when people hear my stories, they typically tend to just latch on to the big ideas. When in my opinion, the smaller ones are the more important. So I would say one of the big ones is that I have done, I'd say, a 70 to 80% job of doing a morning routine, which compared to what it used to be is tremendously better.
Yeah.
A big accomplishment was probably 3 weeks ago. I decided I wanted to hike the equivalent of the world's tallest mountain virtually using stairs. So
oh wow.
I created the spreadsheet and had it calculate out how tall and just from how tall the stairs were and how many stairs there were, it would tell you how many repeats you had to do to hike over 1,500 mountains. Well, and then I just went out and I did it.
Really?
Yeah.
You completed it. When did you you completed like 3 weeks ago or?
Yeah, 3 weeks ago to the day.
That's nuts. That's so cool. And just in your home, you're walking your own stairs or?
No, my roommate made it a little harder on me. He wouldn't let me use our stairs because I'd ruined the carpet.
Okay.
So, no, I had to go find some stairs in the neighborhood.
Okay.
So there's one of the shopping centers right here and have some stairs that aren't frequently used.
Very cool. Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so the next one is, if this year is a chapter in the book of your life, what is this chapter called?
Oh, man. I'm going to use so I've got on my wall over here, the big phrase that I've been trying to think of this year. And so I would say this year's chapter is called Be Bold.
I like that. Why be bold?
I don't know if you've heard of the My Intent bracelets.
No, I haven't.
They are like brass washers that have got string attached, and so you can put it on as a bracelet. So the idea is you stamp on it your word or intention, something that you want to keep in mind. And so 2 years ago, my kind of word for the year was learning. Last year, my word was action. And I realized that action itself isn't, like, it doesn't necessarily get you somewhere, because like anything could be an action. But for me, I've seen the best results when I'm doing something that is bold. So it's not an ordinary action.
I like that too. You'll get what you want in life by being, putting yourself out there and being bold, I guess, right? So I dig it. So I'm ending every podcast with this one question, and then I'll let you go. But I've been thinking about legacy a lot lately. And like I said, with my dad passing and hearing all these stories growing up, and I think about the stories that people will tell about me or what kind of legacy I'll leave behind. So the question I'm asking everybody is, what do you want your legacy to be?
That's a good one.
Yeah. You could take a second too. Like, I know that's a pretty heavy question. So.
Well, it is, yeah. I'll think it out loud, because I don't know the specific. Like, it's a tough one to put into words, because a lot of us don't necessarily say it or write it out often.
You don't think about it in your daily life, but you just,
I tend to. I think you and I are probably similar in that regard.
Okay, cool.
I would say my legacy is, I would love for people to take a second to pause and question their own assumptions. And like the bigger part of that would be giving more concern for the larger picture versus the small picture that we can see right now. And that could be like, people always talk global warming. Like there's a lot of things that have a lot of marketing, and those aren't necessarily the biggest issues, but like we all have the ability to step in and help in situations when we see that something's wrong. And I know I've noticed a lot of people, especially these days, have kind of taken more of a secondary approach. So it's like, oh, I'm going to film this situation versus step in and stop it.
Right.
And I mean, I'm extremely privileged, just how I was born, and like me being a white male in America. But I've had the opportunity to step in several situations that probably would not have gone well had I not stepped in. And like it's hugely rewarding for yourself, but it gives me, it's kind of that superhero mindset. Like you can take from it what you want. I took from superheroes the idea that if I see a problem, I'm going to try and help it. So that would be the legacy I want, is if people see a problem, try to understand it and then help it if they can.
I like that a lot. And yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who, see the example that you set in your everyday life and take that with them. So Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to share your story with me and talk with me.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, I don't really know. I've been trying to work on ending podcasts, but yeah, it was really great to meet you, and thanks for taking the time to talk with me.
Yeah, keep doing it. You're getting better.
Thank you.
It's just you're practicing. You're getting those reps in right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
Who knows what this will turn into?
No idea, but loving the process of learning it. So
yeah, you're having fun. That's what counts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Till next time.
All right, see you. Thank you so much for listening to the Traveling Perspectives podcast. If you want to see content from the project on any social media platform, all you have to do is search Traveling Perspectives. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.